Hello and welcome to today's On the RotoRadar NBA DFS podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend. Over on my right, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon? After a nice day off, man. It was good to have a day off from NBA after the trying to get back and used to the grind of everything that we have to go through for an NBA season.
Yeah, day off yesterday. It's a cold and rainy November day here, Josh, and there's nothing better to do at this point of the year for me in Wisconsin other than talk sports because there's not much we can do outside right now. So it's going to be the way things go for the next several months. I'm here for it. Obviously, with the day off yesterday, the NBA comes back and just smashes us in the face with an insane number of games today. Feels very stars and scrubs-ish just right off the bat in terms of injuries. It's going to be one that I think will be similar to Monday, but has its own roots today.
Yeah, definitely. 14 games on the docket today. Most we've had so far this season. Only two teams not playing on the slate, so pretty massive day of basketball comes up today. Yeah, I think you'd be grossed out if I told you what the temperature is over here. Do you know by any chance what the temperatures might be over here?
Well, it's not too cold here. It's around 50, 45, 50, but it's just been raining all day. So I'm going to guess you're having a great day. So it's probably like 70, 65, 70.
Oh, I wish, man. It is 83 outside right now
Oh,
in
disgusting.
November, my guy. Yeah, we just set record high. I just saw the tweet from our I follow like Nashville severe weather, and said we just set a record high for this day in November at 83 degrees. So
No.
luckily by Friday it gets a little colder with some rain coming in, and I think then we officially like cool down. But I went outside this morning and it was like mid 70s, and I was like, "What is this? This is not how it should be." Anyway, we're done talking about weather. We have so much basketball to talk about today. So, without further ado, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get into this damn thing.
Yep, let's do it, man.
All right, first game up is probably one of the more exciting games on the slate. It is going to be the Utah Jazz facing off against the Indiana Pacers. Currently, Pacers are 6.5 point favorites. Over under is set at a very, very high 242. Let's talk about this Utah team first. Pacers are really bad inside the paint. We found out today that Walker Kessler is going to be doubtful for this one, so we're expecting Kelly Olynyk to get the job here. They could go small ball, I think, and go John Collins instead. I actually don't think that's a bad option to go Collins at your center and then move Laurie down to the four and get one of those other guys into the starting lineup. But we will have to see. Luckily, we'll know this before lock. But obviously, a very interesting team dynamic without Walker Kessler there, a guy who was consistently taking up anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. And now those minutes have to be replaced with the big men. Who do you think it's going to be? Who do you think ends up elevating themselves the most in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, last year our question was this was a very easy question to answer. I think it'll be a little bit different this year. So unfortunately, I have to kind of say this is like a by committee situation until we know further. I would love to kind of just jump in and play somebody from this Utah team. There are definitely going to be more injured teams on the slate, and I still think that this game is like you circle it, you highlight it. It's one of the better games on the board. You basically have the two best games on the slate at the beginning of the slate, so we'll know a lot of information before that. I would say you're kind of just seeing who they start and going from there. I would like to lean on Olynyk if possible because not only is he power forward eligible and center eligible, he's much, much cheaper than John Collins. And I think a matchup against Miles Turner probably is something that they'd like to exploit with getting Olynyk on the perimeter. So it's kind of where I'd start the conversation. But I think you need to roster somebody from Utah today in this game, which we expect to stay very close and has a 240 total.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with the fact that you do have to roster someone here. I question on who. This Pacers team is very interesting in terms of what they've been giving up so far this year. They give up one of the highest 3 point percentages in the league at 39.2%. They give up the least amount of 3 point attempts, though, which is
Okay.
extremely interesting. Maybe teams aren't it's early on in the season that could end up averaging out at the end of the day. But like, it's just a very interesting stat to see that people aren't taking advantage of the good matchup that they have from 3 point range. If this team does take advantage of it, you would think that, automatically out the gate, Laurie would jump off the page as one of the better options, as one of the guys in the NBA who takes the most amount of threes at this current point. And then they're giving up a lot of points in the paint. And that's what worries me here, mostly with the Kelly Olynyk thing, is that, like, if you've watched Kelly Olynyk in years past, he's not really an interior center type of guy. He's more like
Yeah.
a stretch four trying to play the five, honestly. And so that's why I kind of say, like, I'd rather have John Collins be playing center here. I think regardless of the situation, John Collins is probably the guy that I'm going to end up liking the most. I mean, it's not necessarily consistent production from him in terms of value paying off this $6,000 price tag, but hopefully the fact that Walker Kessler is being out and Kelly Olynyk being more of a stretch five than anything else gives him more opportunities for rebounds, more opportunities to score on the interior, and gives him a good matchup. I mean, I think we can definitely see that from Collins, and that's a spot that I feel the most comfortable with on this Utah team.
Yeah, I mean, me being on the Olynyk play purely from a price perspective makes sense, but that goes out the window fast. If number one, what you say happens, and number two, if we find out about 30 minutes before lock that they're just going to start Collins alongside Laurie and the rest of the starters, then you're not playing Olynyk. So I think he's an interesting tournament play. Love the pace and upside here for this Utah Jazz team. It's just going to be one of those things where we just kind of probably have to wait. And I would agree, you probably should be planning to get Collins in there, and he does have the same power forward eligibility. You're just not going to get the best discount off of him.
Yeah, and it's also just tough, right? Because, like, are you really willing to pay? Are you really willing to pay two power forwards from this team? Because, like, if you are going to play Collins and Kelly Olynyk, we're so early on in the slate. There's so many good plays on this slate all the way
Yep.
around. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you have 14 games on the docket, there has to be a ton of good options. So, are you really willing to commit two of your power forwards to one team? Um, that's kind of just, you have to take it case by case, and we'll kind of analyze that throughout the rest of the games that we talk about. But yeah, it's just a tough spot to actually nail down one or the other. Anything else on this Jazz? I'm actually not interested in the guards. Like, I think Talon and Jordan Clarkson are fine, but like, one thing this Pacers team has done well, thanks to Bruce Brown, is the fact that they guard guards really, really well. So I don't have interest in either of the guards. I think this is just a 3, 4, and 5, just a front court conversation for this Utah Jazz team.
Right. I agree. People will probably end up going to this team, and I don't mind it for a game stack situation, but in cash, I have no interest in this, and there's nobody injured that's going to, make anything worth playing today. So, yeah, I think that's fine to stay away from. The last thing that I'll just note, and this is going to be a theory and theme moving forward, it's tough to actually, you have to try to spend money today on FanDuel. DraftKings is a little different. I think
Yep.
FanDuel, you have to, well, that's why I say very starts and scrubs. We'll talk about a lot of value plays, and we'll weed out the ones that aren't as good. So that's kind of the theme I want to stick with here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Pacers as we get them in a spot that's also very good, right? The Jazz aren't a very good defensive team. They're also an incredibly high pace. So this is going to be a high paced matchup for both sides of the ball. What do we like here? Because I think Tyrese kind of failed us a little bit, mostly due to that incredible blowout they had against the Spurs.
Yeah.
He didn't necessarily come through for us. There's definitely spots to attack this Utah Jazz team. I just feel like what really opens up the Pacers today is the fact that the Jazz is the fact that they're missing Walker Kessler, a guy that's playing around 20 to 30 minutes. The Pacers don't have that guy that they're missing. They're actually completely healthy as of this point. Not many teams on
Yeah.
this slate can say that. So, what do you want to do here? Like, I am perfectly fine with saying that, like, there isn't much to do anyway.
Well, I think it's just two guys. I think it's just Halliburton and Turner, and I just think that maybe they're better, at least at center for sure. In Turner's case, definitely better point per dollar plays on both sides. We'll talk about Turner and Halliburton and Pick'em conversations here in a moment. I still think that you can pull the trigger on Tyrese at 10K on FanDuel. I think that the spread's close enough. I think the pace is good enough, total's strong enough to where if anybody would succeed here, it would be him. And again, I think you can feel pretty comfortable choosing two guys north of 10K today, maybe three guys over 8K. We can talk about that as we go along. he definitely is in the conversation. I just don't think it's a must play. And maybe that's what these things need to be today.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you need to have every single position you need to feel very good about on a 14 game slate. There can't be any spots where you're like, that guy's okay to put in there.
Right.
You can feel good about every single spot you roster today. Wouldn't mind going to Bruce Brown today. This Jazz team has had a very deficient shooting guard defense, and I mean that makes sense. Clarkson's not a very good defender anyway, so like Bruce Brown could be a guy that I see you going to, maybe more tournament based than anything else. But if you want more exposure to this game, Bruce Brown might end up being your answer to that. All right. Anything else on this side? If not, let's move over to the pick'em conversation.
No, let's go ahead and move on to Pickett. I think that there are some interesting spots for the Pacers if you don't want to play them in terms of just price structured situations. I guess last thing, and I'll just put this right into Tyrese here. Like, I think that if he plays a full 4 quarters, you have to be really interested in points, assists, a fantasy number potentially. Look, if the guy was under 9,500, he'd be one of the best plays on the slate on FanDuel. So I think that we could start there.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely don't mind that spot. I don't mind the any spot for Laurie that you can find, any spot for John Collins that you can find. For Laurie, I'd be looking at 3 pointers made. So 3.5 looks pretty solid for him. I definitely don't
Mhm.
mind that. And then on the John Collins front, I think points and rebounds is where I would lean, just hoping to get hoping that it comes true. The fact that Walker Kessler being out does end up providing him some more opportunity in the paint. That points rebound number is at 22.5. I think he could cover that with points alone tonight, to be honest with you. So especially with how weak that Pacers interior is. So really like the Collins spot if you decide to go there. Anything else here? I don't think I have much more in this one. I feel like this one's a really fun one. This one could end up being the more exciting one, but the next one we're going to talk about definitely has a little bit more juice to squeeze out.
Sure, it certainly does feel like that. John Collins, this is his first true experience of being a starter on a different team that's not the Hawks. So this is going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Like, good opportunity. Like, yeah, there's risk. I think always with Collins, but at the same time, you're going to get him in an opportunity where you will be ahead of the market if you're bullish on it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's talk about this next game, Jared, if you are ready to.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, next game up, Washington Wizards facing off against the Charlotte Hornets. Currently, the Hornets are 2 point favorites. Over-under is at 239. Let's talk about this Washington team first. Come into an incredibly high-paced matchup with this Charlotte Hornets team that neither one of them are defending very well right now. Both of them are running at some pretty fast paces. Let's talk about this Wizards team. Like I said, they're the healthy team, so this gets a little bit more difficult to actually pick and choose your pieces that you really want here. But I feel like one guy, I mean, he's under 67 now, and I know he hasn't had a great start to the season, but 6,700 just feels way too cheap. I do really like the upside that Jordan Poole gives you today over on FanDuel. With he's going to be shooting the ball a ton of opportunities. Usage is going to be relatively high. I like the Jordan Poole spot to start out.
Yeah, I think that when we approach Wizards conversations, and we could say this about a couple teams today, you just have to play them in spots where they're going to be playing a full allotment of minutes and full 4 quarters of play. And with this one looking like one of the best game totals and one of the closest spreads, does feel like it could pan out to be that way. And you add in some of the stuff on both sides when it comes to injury, and things start to add up here. We also talked about Jordan Poole a couple days ago, and I said that I believe it might have been even this week. Otherwise, it was late last week. Where if Jordan Poole's going to be in a competitive game where his price drops under 7K, like, I'm all for it. So I think that he is a smash on FanDuel, and I think that you can go and play him or Kuzma and feel pretty good about your situation.
Yeah, definitely don't mind the Kuzma side either. I mean, I think either one you can get, you can feel pretty solid about. I think price tag wise today, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Jordan Poole with him
Sure.
being discounted that little bit. But Kuzma, good option. I think Daniel Gafford makes for a good option as well at 5,300. Now, I think you just have better center plays overall
Yeah.
on this slate
Mhm.
when it's all said and done. But I think he's a guy that's going to give you 30 minutes in a competitive game and gets a really good matchup against a Hornets team that's one of the bottom fives in the NBA against the center position when it comes to FanDuel points allowed. I think that
Right.
Daniel Gafford's really solid.
Gafford's solid. I think that everybody outside of Poole is a GPP play. Like even I'd put Tyus Jones there too. The floor still feels relatively shaky, even though his spot's good as well. And yeah, I think that I mean you could play like this is gonna be your game stack game of the day in terms of being able to get anything you would like. And I think nothing's necessarily overpriced. So I can get it behind mostly all of it. I think you only need one wizard for cash, and that is Jordan Poole, but you're going to need probably more than one guy in cash on the Charlotte side.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. Let's talk about that Charlotte side a little bit and talk about what we like from there. We know that Terry Rozier is going to be out for this game. Brandon Miller is going to be filling in once again. Man, it feels like a massive spot for this Hornets team. They're facing off against the Wizards, who are the pace numbers are insane. I know we've kind of touched on it before, but like the difference in pace between the Pacers and the rest of the league has to be one of the biggest differences that I've
Wizards.
seen. Yeah, the Wizards. Sorry, the pace that I've seen this Wizards team play through is insane. Their pace right now is at 106.83. Second closest is the Pacers at 103.79. Like the difference of a whole three possessions is insane, and you just don't see teams run this fast pace ever. Like the next closest team after the Pacers, if you go down three, is all the way down at 15th in the Phoenix Suns. So like tells you how big that gap is and how big of a matchup this is for Charlotte in terms of pace up. Even
Right.
with them being at 103.4, I think you have to have exposure here. It's just a question of who. I think LaMelo Ball is a great option if you're deciding to pay up. And at 8,800, it doesn't feel like too much of a pay up, to be honest, for him. I think Brandon Miller's okay to go back to. It's just how much trust do you have in the guy after putting up such a bad start in that Dallas game?
Yep.
The fact that you can go out there and play 35 minutes and put up some of your worst statistical or worst stats that you've had all season is not that encouraging. You could end up going Gordon Hayward instead or PJ Washington, and both are fine options. What's your read on this? Who do you like the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamelo is. We don't throw this word around lightly, but the L word. I think he's very close to a lock today on FanDuel. I think that you're taking him over Halliburton pretty much 9 times out of 10 here. And the spot without Rozier is going to be just a massive nuke for pretty much everybody in the starting lineup today. We've only seen one game without it, and we, have just seen this team play the Pacers. So that's kind of what we should expect in terms of fantasy outputs for these guys, if not better in this situation. So love LaMelo here, and I think I'll go number two, and I'll just say I'll stop after this play. I'll go LaMelo, and then I'll go Gordon Hayward. I think that he is a staple today as well, with four clear games that he's definitely been deserving of this price tag, and now gets the Rozier spot.
Gordon Hayward in that last game when they were missing Terry Rozier had the highest usage on this team, higher than Lamelo
Yep.
Ball, higher than PJ Washington. His usage right now is insane just because of how this Charlotte team is made, and I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to it, but he's doing really well. He's balling out and being consistent with it. So like I'm willing to buy in on the Gordon Hayward side of things, and I really do like that spot.
Yep.
Anything else here in this game? If not, let's move over to Pick'em and talk about what we like there.
Well, it's a really, really fun game stack game for tournaments, and we'll give you the player pool in the Discord if you remember, and you're listening back to this afterwards. But in cash, it feels very concentrated as far as I'm concerned, and you're looking for guys that not only benefit with the injury stuff, but also match the pace and style of this game. And we think we nailed those guys.
For sure. All right, let's talk through some of these guys that we really like. In terms of pick'em options, I think it all starts out with Jordan Poole points. If we're talking about the Washington Wizards side, I
Mm-hmm.
really like that spot. This Charlotte team has been awful against shooting guards, so like Poole is the first option. I think Tyus Jones assist is a really good option as well. Um,
Sure.
don't even mind going to Gafford and his upside that he presents in the interior with either you can go 27 and a half fantasy score, or I guess I'd go 19 and a half points, rebounds, and assists. I wouldn't want to take points or rebounds alone. I'd want to take a combo, but no points and rebounds here for him, at least on prize picks. I think you can load up in this game. Like, I don't think there's a bad option here necessarily.
Yeah, and where Kuzma feels a little bit overpriced, you can certainly get behind some stuff with him. I mean, I'd be banking on 29.5 points plus rebounds. I think he is a candidate to score over 20 points here. It's just, yeah, you're taking the Jordan Poole discount in terms of price. And so, yeah, Kuzma is a fine option. That would be, you kind of mentioned all the plays that I was going to touch on. So, in terms of the Charlotte side, I think you're going to have to take a really, really hard look today on not only LaMelo points, but points, assists, or even assists by themselves at 10. Maybe just an overall fantasy number. I personally don't have those on Underdog at the moment here. Gordon Hayward, love the upside of anything that you can touch with him, and I think those two guys are the main ones that I would focus on. I don't think you have to necessarily go out of your way for anything else. What are either of the Charlotte guys' fantasy numbers?
For those fantasy scores, we have 49.5 for LaMelo Ball and 34.5 for Gordon Hayward. That's a juicy number for LaMelo. I mean, that's saying
It's
he should be a
juiced.
10K player on FanDuel.
Correct. Yeah, that's
Like
how
that's
big the discount is.
yeah, it's a pretty huge discount.
Love that. I'll stay away from the fancy number for Lamelo. I like assists. That's fine. You take what the market gives you. I also think that Gordon Hayward at 34 is not correct. I'll take the over there.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely get behind the over for Gordon Hayward with that usage that he's currently had. Anything else here? If not, let's keep moving, talking about some other good games.
Yeah, there are a lot of good games left, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's hard to beat that one we just talked about.
Yeah, there's it's very there's a lot of good games. Don't get me wrong. When you have 14, there's bound to be some other good ones. Nothing quite as good as the first two, though. So be prepared for that. All right. Next game up is going to be a really, really fun one, at least in terms of, pure basketball. I'm excited to see who comes out on top here because both of these teams have been playing excellently throughout the first, few games of the season. Celtics facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. Celtics come in as 2.5-point favorites. Over-unders at 227. Let's talk about the Celtics team first because they come in against a 76ers team that's at home, that is been very good so far, has been playing excellent defense. And I don't know, this Boston team's getting back to fully healthy. Like, are you really getting excited about any of this in terms of DFS?
Well, I think the Kristaps thing is definitely a scratch off. That he played through that situation. That game stayed competitive, and he played through it. I'm still excited about at least one play, potentially two, maybe not the second as much, but we still expect Derek White to be out with this personal situation, unless I
Mhm.
miss some more news. So if he's in, then you're not playing anything. But if he's out, I think that you can take a look at Jaylen Brown, who has dominated in this matchup over time. It does feel like Tatum, if you look historically, at least over the last couple seasons, has deferred to Brown in this spot. Now I know the season's a little bit different, and obviously James Harden's not on this team anymore. But I'll still go back to Jaylen Brown. I think that that's interesting. He's a guy that I'm always intrigued. If he plays a full 4 quarters, then I think that he has a really good shot to always have some kind of floor ceiling combination. So 7,700 for Brown is fine. I'll take the backseat on Drew for a while until we see potentially another situation where a guy sits. But it does feel like I like this game. I think this game's fun for a variety of narrative reasons and historical reasons. And the spread's close. So, yeah, I think Jaylen Brown's fine. He's just not going to be as good of a play as some things we've talked about already.
Yeah, currently Derek White probable to be in this game, so I think
Oh,
we're
okay. So that must
expecting
have
him back
happened
from.
in the last
Yeah,
hour.
yeah. I think that we're expecting him to be back. So I
Okay.
get behind the Jalen Brown stuff. I agree with you. There's a really good floor ceiling combo whenever he has the ability to play, a full 4 quarters. So I definitely don't mind that. I just don't think it's something that like pops out that like I need it on this slate on a 14 gamer. And same thing goes with this Celtics team. And honestly, same thing goes with the 76ers. Like both of these teams are fully healthy. It's going to be hard to get a lot of exposure. I don't know. I guess Joel Embiid could really dominate against Porzingis and the weaker interior that the Celtics team now has with Porzingis at the center position.
Sure.
But I don't know if I'd be willing to take willing to take a risk on it.
No, Embiid being all the way up at 11-9 following the monster game that he just had, it's just something where I don't. I mean, obviously he's going to kill Daniel Gafford, and I don't. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Uh, I'll probably stay away from everything else on the Sixers side if we knew like the Derek White stuff. I did not know, so that makes more sense. You can fade the game, but it is fun. I think that you can play Tatum and Embiid in tournaments. I think you can make a combination of one guy on each side in tournaments if you wanted to go that route.
It's a very heavy like playoff environment s game. Like this could
Oh
be
yeah.
your Eastern Conference championship, honestly. And I I don't know, when it gets to that, you get better defense on both sides, it feels like. And I could see this just being a really fun game to watch and not a fun game to end up playing in DFS. At least that's my viewpoint. For that reason, I'm out on pick'em stuff too. I really don't like anything on this game in terms of playing it for betting. Do you like any pick'em options here?
Yeah, I do just want to see something. Want to see if this number. I guess it kind of crept down a little bit. Jalen Brown had some of his things taken down by a number or so. I think 30 and a half points, rebounds, assists is just fine here. If he's going to be a candidate, even with Derek White back, like if his line is set at 22 and a half points, he just needs to go and overachieve in some of the other categories. And I think that if you're playing four quarters for Boston anytime, just like the Wizards, like if these games, Boston has blown out so many teams already. If these games stay close, I think Jalen Brown has as good of a shot as any to hit a collective number like 30 and a half PRA.
Yeah, I would tend to agree there. All right. Anything else here? If not, let's move on to another really interesting game that we're gonna have to talk through.
No, no, I'm good. We can move on.
All right, next game up is going to be the Clippers facing off against the Brooklyn Nets. Currently, we have the Clippers at 5.5 point favorites, over unders at 231.5. Let's talk about this Clippers team first. We got the debut of James Harden on this team, and I don't know, man. It seems like it's just going to be a very fair and balanced approach unless one of these guys end up getting injured. Um, they just end up spreading the ball out really well. Like I think James Harden and Russell Westbrook both had incredibly similar touch times at the end of the day, almost the same amount of touches overall in that game. We saw the minutes limit was kind of just it wasn't really a minutes limit. I mean, he played 31 minutes.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts here for this Clippers side? And definitely feels like a thing today where we're not playing anything here.
No, we're not going to play anything here. Also, it looks like they are now in a spot where they kind of have to ramp up Terrence Mann now that they lost Mason Plumlee. I know Norman Powell is going to lead the second unit most likely on, and Terrence Mann and him will kind of go back and forth with that. But losing Mason Plumlee now makes them a lot smaller than they're going to be used to. So maybe we do see some interesting things. They'll still start the same five guys like they did last time out, and that itself is not ideal. But I'm very curious to see how, because I have interest in Zubac a little bit. I know Nick Claxton potentially, has he was assigned to the G League, so I don't know why he says he's not out here, but he's out. Cam Johnson's still out. And Ben Simmons is hobbled, so maybe we need to see. I don't know. Somebody's going to be able to do well on the interior for this Clippers team. It's just really hard to read at the moment. So again, different slate. Maybe I'd say Zubac is more of a cash game play, but can't really say that today.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you probably have better center options. I think on like a 7 game slate, you could start considering Zubac, but I don't know. This Clippers team is really interesting in terms of no one scored over 20 in that game against the Knicks. I know they lost pretty badly against the Knicks too. So like,
Yep.
it's going to be interesting to continue. Like I said last time we talked about this team, you're just going to have to continue to watch and see exactly what this team looks like with all four of these guys on the court at the same time because it's going to be a little bit messy until they get a groove of things.
It's the easiest fade team for the next week. Like we don't even have to say anything after this show regarding this.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. Currently, we're waiting on news for Ben Simmons, who is questionable with a hip injury. Lonnie Walker, probable with a knee injury. Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton, both still out. Man, if they lose Ben Simmons, they're going to go back to this thing where they're going to have to play Dorian Finney-Smith at the center position, and they're just
Yeah.
completely undersized. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Brooklyn Nets team, and I don't know. You kind of just got to wait on Ben Simmons news, and even once we get Ben Simmons news, I don't think it elevates anyone enough to where I'm interested in playing him against a very good Clippers defense.
Yeah, this is for the Nets. This is basically going from one of the best matchups for shooters to one of the not one of the worst matchups necessarily, but not something you would want to target on such a big slate. Cam Thomas absolutely took advantage of a close game against Milwaukee. Mikal Bridges, same thing. I understand that those guys can have ceilings, and now they've shown they can have ceilings together with some of these guys out, but it's not something I'm necessarily chopping at the bit to get in these builds. Like if I guess if you had to play one cash game play, it would be DFS, right? If Ben Simmons was out.
Yeah, probably, but I don't know. I don't even feel good about that, to be honest with
You
you.
don't
Like he's
feel
just
good
going to
about
be,
anything necessarily.
yeah, for sure. He's going to be so outsized by Zubac that it's just going to be a very tough night for this team. Hopefully they have Ben Simmons. They kind of need him in this one, so we'll just have to wait and see on that front. Anything else here in this game? I think pick'em options are just out the window here. I don't think there's even a need to talk about them unless you have anything that
Um,
you really want to highlight.
it's not great, but again, like if you're going with the theory that even if Ben Simmons is in, they're still undersized. So without Mason Plumlee, I think Zubac's got he had a strong role anyway. So it's not great necessarily sharing the ball with all those guys in the starting unit, but he has a 19 and a half point rebound number. That's fine. I think that's okay.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't think it's a bad option for sure. All right. Anything else in this one, Jared? If not, let's move on to the next.
No, it's an easy game to skip for cash.
It is for sure. All right. Next game up is going to be the Spurs facing off against the Knicks. Currently, Knicks are 10-point favorites over under set at 223.5. Let's talk about this Spurs side. Got blown out in pretty spectacular fashion against the Pacers. That was not a good game for them. Victor Wembanyama ended up coming up short. So did the majority of the guys on the team. Now they face off against the Knicks team that has a very solid defense. They're in Madison Square Garden, which I think could be big for Victor here. But I don't know. Give me your thoughts on the Spurs team because for me, it's not feeling like anything jumps off the page.
Well, it's a bad matchup for everybody outside of Vic, and even then, there's stories about it this morning. By the way, um, he said it was smaller than he expected it to be in reference to the garden.
Oh
So
well.
if that's I don't know, weird comment, and also weird comment by Mitchell Robinson saying I've guarded tall guys before. This shouldn't be that bad. So we'll see how it goes. Um, I don't know. I have no interest on this side. It's a big pace down spot for the Spurs, and there's blowout risk here. Victor is going to be the reason this thing stays close, and if Keldon Johnson sits or starts, then I don't really think it really matters. We kind of saw that against the Pacers, so I don't know. Do you think that this game being a slower pace for them is going to help or hurt?
Hurt for in terms of DFS production. Yeah,
Well, in
it's going
terms
to
of
definitely.
games staying close, right? Because they have been the Spurs are a top 10 team at pace so far this year, which is not something we've seen recently from them.
Yeah, I think pacing down is going to just hurt their overall game style because they like to keep things quick. That's their only way of keeping things close, is keeping things quick. So if they're not
Sure.
able to induce their pace style, then it's gonna might be a pretty bad night. We'll have to wait and see. But let's talk about this Knicks team because I'm not really interested in anything from the Spurs. I think if you were to get some exposure, you'd probably be playing both sides in tournaments. This isn't really a cash game anyway, but like I think Jalen Brunson could do well here. I think RJ could do relatively well here. I don't know. There's definitely options here. I just don't know if you take the risk with the blowout risk that this one definitely has.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in anything here. I think it's a clear stay away. Like there's way too much risk on such a large slate.
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is too much of a risk on a large slate. Anything jump off the page for you over on Prize Picks or Underdog that you really like?
Uh, it's tough to say take a Wemby under, but I feel like you could in this spot. Points, rebounds,
Yeah,
assists. If he's playing three quarters, then he's not going to hit these things.
yeah, no, for sure. I could definitely get behind a Wemby under. Wouldn't mind a Brunson over points. I think that things could really get heated up for him. This point guard position for the Spurs has been really bad in terms of defense. So I don't mind the upside that Jalen Brunson has in terms of getting that points line that is currently at where is it 23 and a half. I can definitely get behind that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind it. I think you can play both of like an under for Wemby and over for Jalen and feel pretty good about that if you want to just run a correlation game.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next game up is going to be the Suns facing off against the Bulls. Currently, the Bulls are 1 point favorites. Over under is 218.5.
Hmm.
Snoozer game, but potentially not a snoozer game based on the news that we get. Bradley Beal is questionable. He returned to practice yesterday. We're expecting that this is pretty close to when he comes back time, and we could see the actual big three that they've put together here in Phoenix. So, what do you think about this Phoenix situation? And is this kind of similar to the James Harden thing, where it's going to be more of a wait and see than anything else if Bradley Beal does return to the lineup?
Yeah, what's funny about that is like if this is truly a game time decision thing, the Bulls 2 hours ago were a pick 'em. Now they're a 1 point favorite. I mean, I don't think Brad. Maybe he's a one, but if he truly is like only moving things 1 point, then that's really a bad look for the Suns. I have no interest here. This is a super pace down spot. And I think there are just better plays than trying to spend 10K on Kevin Durant in a case where he just has not necessarily. I don't know. With Booker on the court, he completely turned into just a scoring guy. Um, and I feel like that's potentially going to be a thing again. I don't know. I know he had a really good game against Detroit. That's fine. It is Detroit. And I think that it's just one of those things where if it was a smaller slate, I'd have a little bit more interest in the Phoenix spot. But I don't really think it needs to be discussed for cash today.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that we'll have to see what happens with Beal. If he's out, then like I do think you have some options. And honestly, I would lean towards him being out with the Bulls being 1 point favorites. I don't know. The line feels trappy as it is right now. But
Sure.
yeah, I would not be shocked if he's going to stay out another game. Maybe they wait to get Booker and Beal and Durant all in one lineup to actually give this thing a go before they actually bring back Bradley Beal. So we're just gonna have to wait and see on that front. But um, I wouldn't mind going to Yusuf Nurkic here if we end up getting the news that Beal's going to be out. That's where this Bulls team struggles the most is at the center position. I could see Yusuf end up putting up a pretty good game here, so I don't mind Nurk here whatsoever.
If I were to be a betting man, which I feel like I am at this
Which you
point,
are.
yeah, I would say that they won't play him tonight, and they'll play him against the Lakers on Friday at home for
Oh,
the in-season tournament. So
I like that take. I like that
I
take.
would say Brad Beal's probably not playing tonight,
Yeah,
which is kind of. I know it's not A equals or A plus B equals C here, but like the line moving 1 point in Chicago's favor is very disrespectful to Bradley Beal's injury.
yeah, it certainly is. Uh, Anything on the Chicago side that you like? Because I mean, honestly, the Suns team isn't necessarily. Oh. One last thing before we move on to Chicago. If Phoenix does end up sitting Bradley Beal, I feel like at this point you almost have to play Eric Gordon in these spots. He's just
Yeah,
getting so many touches and so much usage, and he's purely just a scoring guy right now. But like, if he can get into the peripherals, like we saw against Detroit, the numbers can be massive, man. I mean, we just saw he put up 40 FanDuel points. So like,
yeah.
I don't mind if you go to the Eric Gordon spot if we do find out that this team is going to be without their two star guards for another game.
He definitely fits your stars and scrubs build and gives you a little bit more of a floor ceiling than a scrub on today's slate. We'll talk more about them, but it will be interesting to see. I think that is worth noting. Maybe you build your actual lineups according to counting on that to be a thing, and thankfully, you can probably just use the extra money to pivot up or down um, in that same time frame of 8 o'clock.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, okay, moving over to the Chicago side now. Any interest on this side? Because for me, it's kind of a no go. I mean, they've got Caruso probable, they got Patrick Williams probable. Um, Vooch could have a really good game here. I mean, that's what this Suns team has struggled with the most is the fact that they've allowed a lot of points in the paint. So like, I could see Vucevic having a very good game. I could see DeMar having a really good game because he's been one of their main drive guys throughout this season. It's kind of just whichever one you want you can look at, but I don't feel like it's a cash game viable play.
No, I like Vooch's price. I don't like what he's done recently with it. So I know one tough matchup, but he should have succeeded more against Brooklyn. He should have succeeded more against Utah, especially when Walker Kessler left that game. So I'll be out on that spot.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Pick'em. I don't mind attacking Vooch uh from a prize pick side of thing or a pick'em side of thing. He's at 15.5 points. I think you rely on this points in the paint number and you roll with
Mhm.
it here with 15.5. So definitely don't mind that. What else do you like here in terms of this game in general? You don't have to stay to one side or the other.
Yeah, I mean, if you are, I like the Vooch stuff. We were targeting him at around closer to 30 points rebounds last week. Obviously failed in some of those spots, but if he's clearing points, he's also probably clearing points rebounds at 26 and a half.
Yeah, most likely. I can get behind that. Anything else here? I think for the Sun side, you kind of just have to wait and see until we get this Bradley Beal news.
Correct, and they're not going to put Gordon on underdog, so it's one of those things where you're not going to be able to get ahead of the game.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move on to this next one, Jared. My Lakers facing off against the Houston Rockets. Lakers are currently 4.5 point favorites on the road. Over under is set at 220.5. Let's talk about this Lakers team first. Yeah, I think usually we would just write this off and say, no, thanks, not interested. Today, that is not the case because we currently know that Anthony Davis is questionable for this game, ended up
Yeah.
leaving at halftime in the last one. Tried to give it a go, wasn't able to, went back into the locker room in the fourth quarter, ended up being in there for quite a while. So Anthony Davis is kind of a question mark to this team right now. We don't know if he's going to play today or not. Uh, if he ends up sitting, obviously Anthony Davis has been a monster this year. So someone is going to take over a lot of usage, a lot of rebounding opportunities. At least what we saw in the fourth quarter of the last game is that guy's going to be Christian Wood who takes over that responsibility.
Love it. It's a
Yeah.
true head scratcher of a Davis thing, which thankfully you will have several injuries. New Orleans will have the Milwaukee without Chris Middleton. We'll have Memphis without Tillman. We'll have the Phoenix stuff without Beal or with Beal. So there's a lot going on in this 8 p.m. window, which means you have to have flexibility for it. And yeah, I mean, this is not only going to be potentially an awesome spot for Christian Wood, regardless. Like I know Rui's available. It's going to hurt technically if Davis is in. Prince is back. Cam Reddish is playing. Like that, you're getting healthier on the Lakers side. But if Davis is gone, I expect Christian Wood to start and play close to 30 minutes. And it's a revenge narrative in Houston.
A revenge narrative for
Am I
Christian
wrong
Wood?
here?
I think you are. I don't think he
Who am
ever
I
played for
thinking of
Houston.
then?
I don't know. Let me go look up Christian Wood now, but I'm ninety
I
percent
would
sure
feel
he.
really dumb, but either way, it's a great spot. So
Yeah, Wood has played for. Oh no, he did play for the
yeah,
Rockets,
that's what I'm saying. I think yeah,
dude.
right before he went to the Mavericks, he was pissed about his role there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm bought in. Why did I just think of him as a Maverick right now? I don't know why I don't think
It
of him
was the
as a.
year where Shingun basically took his job.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I can get behind this. I'm down. Yeah, I love this Christian Wood spot. I loved it before. I love it even more now. Definitely a solid spot. I don't think the defense is all that of much of a concern either in that interior. Shingun's a pretty solid defender, but still, I think Christian Wood has the advantage. Man, this signing is coming up big for this Lakers team. I mean, the role that he's been able to take on, and we signed him for the vet min. It's been huge for Christian
Yeah,
Wood. So, very happy with that, and definitely think that this is a spot where if Anthony Davis is out, which I would lean towards the fact that he is most likely to
yep,
prepare, make sure they have him for the in-season tournament if they even play on Friday. I
they do.
think that Christian Wood would be the guy that ends up filling in here. And you say 30 minutes. He played 30 minutes in the last game. I think there's a very likely chance that he gears up towards 35 to 36. Like I would not be shocked to see him in the mid 30s.
Then you would count on him closing with the
Yeah,
starters. You would
he
count
did.
on.
Go
Go.
ahead.
Did he?
No, go for it. Yeah, he did. He played the whole fourth quarter in that Miami
Okay.
game.
So a few things on this. Just like the Suns, this applies directly to the Lakers, where if there was a game that they would sit Davis, this would be one, and they would try to play him on Friday against the Suns in a tougher environment, like I mentioned. I think that's also why Booker's not playing today too. So for the Suns, so I also think that this spread being scarily close, 4.5 points in Houston, is something to where I'm already baking in Davis not playing for this. I think they'd be closer to 6, 7 point favorites if that was the
Yeah,
case. So yeah, I think all of this kind of points towards Wood, and he, in my opinion, is maybe you disagree with me here, but he's definitely better than Kelly Olynyk at the same position. Not the price is not fair, but I think he's a better bet point per dollar than John Collins.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with that. I think that that's fine. I mean, the spot's going to be so massive for him, and I do really like it. Let's talk about some other options on this Lakers team because there has to be more than just that. I don't think Austin Reeves is a bad idea. We saw him really take over in that Miami game. Was his biggest game of the season so far. Almost had a triple double, and that was mainly when we saw Anthony Davis leave. So I think Reeves is going to take a big jump here, and I wouldn't mind going there. And obviously you got to talk about LeBron. I don't know. This could be kind of like a deferral where he's not going to score a whole bunch of points. But
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to in a game stack situation, or even if you just wanted to be heavy on this Lakers team, I think LeBron isn't a bad option. Though Dylan Brooks said that he was going to lock him up in this game, so be prepared. Watch out for Dylan Brooks' defense here.
There have been two big games for LeBron in the past couple. Obviously, he got really close to 50 fantasy points against Orlando too, but two narrative-driven games. You obviously know he's going to ball out against Miami, in
Yeah,
Miami, and
should have won
then
that game.
taking having a monster game against the Clippers. Both of those are statement games. That makes sense. I don't see it here. If he was mid to low nines on FanDuel, I'd have a lot more interest, but I just can't get there myself. I'll take Tyrese Halliburton over him, cross
Yeah,
positional.
for sure. Yeah, you definitely, without a doubt. I mean, taking Lamelo Ball and getting $1,000 savings off of it is
That too.
massive, massive. All right, let's talk about this Houston side. I don't find myself very interested in this Rockets team. They're very healthy as of right now. This Lakers defense has been pretty solid so far this season. I don't know anything that jumps off the page for you when it comes to Houston.
FVV, think that he's a candidate to jump and step up in this game. I know the floor is shaky. It's not reliable in cash, but tournaments, I'm okay with it. Other than that, you kind of just cross off a bunch of spots, and Tari Eason coming back into the rotation is going to affect some guys that potentially are borderline underpriced. So I'm all out over there. Actually, the only play that I would even consider is Shingun, who is overpriced at center today, comparative to the market. He has deserved the the $8,200 price tag, and I think that I have a play that I wrote up earlier today that I'll talk about here in front of the paywall. So I like Shengun. I don't like much else than that because we have to also consider that if Davis is out, he gets Christian Wood defense, which I'm not afraid of from Shengun's standpoint.
Yeah, definitely can certainly get behind that. All right, anything else? If not, let's move over to pick'em stuff.
Do we at least want to discuss D'Angelo Russell without Gabe Vincent? Is that a thing or
No,
not really? Okay.
no, not against Fred VanVleet. Maybe in another spot, but FEV has good defense, and I'll stay away from that.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about pick'em stuff. I think for me, the main thing that sticks out, I love Austin Reeves' fantasy score. You can get it right now at 27. I'm fine with it whether AD plays or AD doesn't play. I think that he's hit it in the last three. He's starting to find his role in this new offense, and I do really like the Austin Reeves side of things.
Okay. Yeah. I have nothing wrong with that. And you're not going to get the beneficiary numbers because Davis is currently listed on Underdog. So, I mean, maybe you can look at like LeBron assists or something along those lines outside of the Reeves spot, which I like, but they don't have much listed outside of that. And then on the other side, it's just Shengun for me. And I mean, I like the rebounds, and I think that he'll have close to 10, but it's not something I'm super thrilled about. Where I would get that exposure is actually points and assists numbers. The assist numbers actually have looked pretty decent for him starting this season. And either way, I think he can be a scorer in this game. So 20 and a half points plus assists feels a tad bit too low.
I like it, man. He got 12 assists in the last one. He's a little mini
Yeah.
Jokic, honestly, when it's all said and done. All right.
hmm
Um, anything else in this game? If not, let's move on to the next one.
No, I think this kind of just starts a trend of 8 p.m. game news things that we'll just continue to harp on.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about this next game. It is the Miami Heat versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Currently, the Grizzlies are 1 point underdogs at home. Over unders at 218. Does this 1 point underdog thing seem weird to you? I mean,
Sure.
Grizzlies haven't won a game yet. I don't think they've won a game yet. I'm pretty sure they
I think they
haven't.
won one, right?
Did they? I don't know. I was actually going to go look at records because I don't know what the Miami Heat's record is, but I know it's way better than the Grizzlies, and I feel pretty
No,
confident that
it's
the
not.
Grizzlies. It's not.
I mean, look, the Heat were in last place in the
I mean,
East for a second, but it's
three
a
and
little bit
four is
better
better
now.
than 1 and 6. Like that's the so you're right. Grizzlies have won one. It's 1 and 6. I'm pretty sure that one they won was against the Portland Trailblazers. Like, okay,
Probably.
this Heat team 3 and 4. I don't know. This is a very iffy game for me in terms of spread. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, though. We're here to talk about how bad this Memphis team is in terms of they give up so many threes. It feels like Tyler Hero night, right? Like it feels like a
Yes.
spot where this is going to be a massive role for him, a massive opportunity for a guy who takes a bunch of 3 point shots. Only thing I worry about is that they might. I say might because I say might. I think they will. Marcus Smart could very well guard Tyler Hero tonight, and that's a little bit scary. Other than that, though, I think the spot is elite. I don't think it gets much better than what you have for Tyler Hero right here.
Well, not only that too, but this Miami team's coming off of that Lakers game, and you get Jimmy Butler, who's nursing a knee injury. I just one of these times he's going to sit because of this. I know he's probable today, but I think that he's a candidate to potentially sit here. I don't know, man. I know it's not a back to back. He sat the second half of a back to back earlier against that Boston team. So I don't know. I lean with relying a little bit more on Hero and Bam here, and that's kind of where I would stop. Like I don't really think you need to. Obviously, I think Memphis is the more interesting side because of injury, but um, it does feel like you're just playing Tyler Hero. And is he even a cash game viable option? I think he is, but is he the best? I would say no.
Yeah, I would lean towards a no as well. I think you probably have better options. I'll be interested to look at some of those 3 point numbers once we get over to the pick'em conversation. I don't. I think it's just Tyler Hero best from this Miami Heat team. This Grizzlies team, though, man, talk about getting the injury bug early on in the season.
Yep.
John Conchar out. Xavier Tillman's going to be out as well. Then you have the other guys that we know are out: John Moran, Derrick Rose, Brandon Clark, Steven Adams. That's 7 guys, man. That's a lot to lose. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see Bismack end up filing into the center position for this team. We've already seen it once when he took over for Xavier Tillman, and it looked pretty respectable. I mean, 34 FanDuel points. He's at 5,400 price tag right now. How viable is the Bismack play? Against Bam, it feels a little bit less likely that he's going to do as well. But is there any upside to a guy at 5,400 who most likely plays 30 minutes in this one?
I mean, yeah, the upside. I'll say the upside's 40 because he's not always.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I get it. Bam is a concern, but does it matter if Biombo is just going to be out there for 30 plus minutes? Like he could have 17, 18 rebounds in this game. Uh, so for as much as we talked about Tyler Hero, you have to like Biombo for that reason. Memphis is going to give up a lot of 3 point shots. And not all of them are going to go in. So I think that's a clear indication of him being a strong play. Like the floor is probably like 22. And that's fine on something like this. I think that he's the best center play on the slate point per dollar.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I do think he ends up being a really good center play and really solid overall there for Bismack. I don't know about top point per dollar guy. I think I have one guy towards the end of the slate that I think you have to play at the center position today, but we'll
Mm.
get there when we get there. Let's talk about any of these other Memphis guys that get a boost from this. I think at the end of the day, it probably is just Bismack. I guess you could go to Jaren Jackson and feel okay about it, but I don't know if I would at this price tag.
Do you want to? I don't really
No,
want to.
no, not really. Not really at
I
all. All
mean,
right,
yeah.
prize. Let Oh, go ahead.
I just think the floor is a little bit shaky in a tough matchup. And you could say
Yeah,
the same thing about Biombo, I guess, but it just not. I'm not all there for it.
I would tend to agree. All right, let's move over to the pickup side of things. Maybe we can find something we like a little bit more over here. Tyler Hero said how I wanted to attack these 3 point numbers. 9 3 pointers attempted, um, 3.5 3 pointers made. I'm fine with either one. I think both are good. I think I would lean towards 3 pointers attempted because of that Marcus Smart defense, but I think he just fires them off like crazy today.
I like that. I like the points number for him as well. I'm a little bit not as concerned with the Smart defense. I just think he's going to chuck anyway, which is probably more to your attempts points. So fine with either. Not much else on the Miami side. Again, the line feels a bit fishy with all the Memphis injuries. I understand it's the game where Miami is on the road here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Butler got scratched. I guess nothing would surprise me in terms of that at the moment. Um, Other than that, though, I think that looking for. I don't think are they going to give you a beyond. Oh, they are. Okay, give me the over of Biombo rebounds. I'll take that. It's at 7. At that, I don't know. What's his fantasy number over there on Prize Picks?
Let's go see. If they have it up even. Oh, I don't even know if we have Bismack numbers. Unless I spelled his last name wrong. Hold on.
Well, I'm
Bismack.
like 13 and a half points, rebounds. I don't really care who it's against. Missing 4 centers or 3 centers. I just don't see how he doesn't get over 7 rebounds or over 13 and a half points, rebounds.
No Grizzlies numbers yet. We're gonna have to wait and see on all those.
Huh.
Or sorry, not no Grizzlies. No Bismack numbers yet. We're gonna have to wait and see in
Oh,
terms of fantasy points and all that.
okay.
Uh, all right. Anything else here? If not, let's keep it moving and move on to the next game.
I mean, are you in agreement that there's no way he gets under 7 rebounds?
Yeah, probably.
I
I would
mean, like,
assume so.
why are these lines here? That's kind of what
Yeah.
my stance is on this.
Yeah, I would assume that there's probably a very little chance that he ends up getting under 7.
Well,
All right,
okay, wait, one more thing here. Like, do
go
we?
for it.
The number is probably here, and this probably takes me off of the best center point per dollar play because Aldama probably crosses the 20-minute mark tonight.
Um,
He played
yeah,
19 minutes in the other game, so
yeah, but
that
he
was
was
on
fully
Saturday.
ready to. I guess they might have eased him in. They might give him a bigger role today. Yeah, maybe Santi's your guy. I wouldn't mind going Santi, honestly. Um, we'll just have to wait
That's
and
why
see on
those
that front,
numbers are
though,
there. That's for sure.
for sure. All right, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right, next game up. Pistons facing off against the Bucks. Current total is at 227 and a half. Bucks are favored by 12 and a half points. I don't know, man. How much do you really want to talk about this game? Because like I get that there's injuries. I get that Middleton's going to be out due to injury management, but this could get blowout happy really, really quick. I mean, this Pistons team, I just don't know if they're good enough. I think the only thing that really interests me is the fact that the Pistons are without a lot of guys right now.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren questionable, so we have to wait and see on him. Jaden Ivey out, Alec Burks out, Joe Harris out, Bojan Bogdanovic out, Monte Morris out, and Isaiah Livers out. With that many guys injured, it kind of prevents you from going to a situation where you have to put in the bench guys because there just isn't many of them. I'm sure they still will have like a bench unit, but like some of these guys, if it even stays remotely close, could play some massive minutes. So, are you interested in anyone here in terms of this Pistons team?
I think you kind of have to have some. I think you answered your own question. Uh, it really relies on Duran playing or not, in my opinion. Because if you do that, then this thing blows wide open. If he does not play, then this thing blows wide open. Like the Pistons do not have a small forward that's playing in the player pool today. They also have some really questionable guys after that. So I'm not necessarily sure if I want to go to like the really really scrubby guys on at shooting guard position, but I certainly could get behind Osar Thompson. I can get behind Cade Cunningham if he's going to end up taking advantage of. I think he can beat anybody that guards him on the wing, or if they put literally anybody that's not named Giannis or Brook on him, I think he'll succeed today. It's just a matter of this game staying close. Other than that, so from the Pistons angle, I don't mind Marvin Bagley. I understand it's going to be a bad matchup during the competitive parts of the game, but I don't think they'll have a choice if Jalen Duren doesn't play. And I don't know who else is even available. Like that's why I think Osar Thompson's really intriguing today.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind the Oscar Thompson point. I worry a little bit. Jay Crowder is going to start, right? For you guys at small
He'll
forward.
probably start for Middleton. Yeah.
Yeah, so I worry a little bit about that matchup because Crowder's a pretty physical guy and pretty good defender. So I don't know. It could be interesting. I think I'm the most intrigued by the Marvin Bagley situation. If Duran is out, this Bucks team has allowed the most fantasy points to the power forward position compared to anyone else in the NBA. That floored me with Giannis playing power forward
Yep.
essentially. Like,
Yep.
uh, I don't think it's necessarily his fault for being a bad defender, or he's like a bad defender. I'm not going to overreact like that, but there's definitely a hole in the system here when it comes to you guys guarding power forward. So I like Bagley. That's where he would fit in if we got the Duran news that he was going to be out. So definitely could get behind that. Um, and probably the All-Star stuff too. I definitely don't mind that as well. Like you said, no wing guys to really help them out there. I mean, sure they'll have guys like Andre Jackson and some of their other guys that I don't really know the names of, to
You
be
don't
honest
want
with
to
you.
play him. Not today.
Yeah, well, no, you definitely don't want to play him. I'm just saying that like they'll fill in at the small forward position. It won't be
Sure.
Osar playing like 48 minutes or anything, but yeah, it certainly will be interesting to see some of the teams that this Piston team ends up rolling out. On the other side, the Bucks. I mean, this just gets too blowout happy for anyone to make value, right?
I would tend to side with that right out the gate here. And maybe Adrian Griffin changes things up and he gives the start to Marjan Beauchamp. So we'll see. I don't think so. But Beauchamp and Bobby Portis are the only guys that I really like that could fill in if this thing gets out of hand.
Yeah,
And mainly Beauchamp. I think Beauchamp is blowout proof.
for sure. I can get behind it. All right. Anything else in this game? If not, let's move on to Pick'em. Just to say that like there's not much you can do with Pick'em until you get Duran news.
There's not much here. I would say if you wanted to take Alsar Thompson, anything, I think that is fine. Like literally any numbers are probably okay. Uh, and then you just have blowout risk, and it depends when that blowout risk happens. We've also just seen the Bucks give up things when things get really out of hand. We saw them blow 20-point leads twice now, uh,
Yeah.
almost to where the starters had to come back in against the Heat. So I'm not necessarily sure that the two numbers make sense. On one hand, one number being like the spread's 12.5, but the other number is like the Detroit Pistons don't have more than like 6 or 7 available bodies that are competent NBA players. So shouldn't this be more?
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. But we're just going to have to wait and see until we get some more of that news out of Detroit and
Okay,
out of
one more
Milwaukee.
thing.
Go
One
for
more
it.
thing. Sorry. Damian Lillard's 8,600 on FanDuel. When's the last time you saw that?
Yeah, I mean it's been a while, but he's also never had a superstar of Giannis'
I know.
caliber
I know.
taking
This
away
is
his
a pipe
shots.
dream, but if this game stays anywhere under 20 points, Lillard is going to hit value at that price tag,
Oh,
and you're playing LaMelo and a bunch of guys over him just because of that in cash. But in tournaments, I'll write up Lillard as a play.
yeah, I don't mind it in tournaments. I think it's a long shot, but I think it definitely is something that can win you a lot of money at the end of the night. Pick 'em stuff. Anything here? I'm staying away until we get Duran news.
No, I mean, again, I'm actually, well, I won't stay away. I'll stay away from everybody but Thompson, just to get a little bit more bullish on that.
For sure. All right, let's move on into the next game, which is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers facing off against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Currently, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder as 2.5 point underdogs at home today. Over under is set at 228.5. Let's talk about this Cavs team first. This could be a massive matchup for the Cavs in a spot where if this OKC team is going to be without Lou Dort, who's currently questionable with a hip injury, it could be a massive spot for Donovan Mitchell and for Darius Garland. This team, in terms of what Oklahoma City has done, has been the fifth worst team in the league against the shooting guard position, and
Mm-hmm.
the fifth worst team in the league against the point guard position as well. I really want to say that I really like Donovan Mitchell today, man. I think there's a ton of upside here. I think that, we've seen stuff stay pretty steady, even with Darius Garland being back in terms of his scoring, in terms of the shots he's gotten up. And we've seen some stats even improve for him. I really like Donovan Mitchell here. And if Lou Dort sit, it's just icing on the cake if Lou Dort ends up sitting and Donovan Mitchell gets a matchup against Giddy. Shea's a tough defender, so I won't say Shea, but there's not that many like elite defenders once you get out of Lou Dort or once Lou Dort gets out on this team.
Right. I mean, we've already seen this happen before. This game was the second game of the season, and obviously there were injuries that helped the Mitchell spot get him to 70 fantasy points before, but that's still his ceiling game of the year. If even if Dort plays, I think that he's still not 100%. I'd say he's like 80%, maybe even less. So I like that a lot. You also do lose the Okoro starting spot. I think that Max Struess, would Struess start or would Levert start? Because it doesn't really matter
Struess
as
already
much.
starts.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where Donovan is a pay up spot. That makes a lot of sense. It definitely qualifies as a guy you can play over 10K today. I think this game has some interesting pieces on both sides of it, but the Cavs side with some of this stuff is really intriguing. I think that I was coming into the day expecting to have this one just be a fade from a fantasy perspective, but you do have to really just kind of bank. And again, like the Dort being out stuff, maybe you prepare for that, and if it doesn't happen, you pivot elsewhere.
I don't even think you need to pivot. Like I said, I like this Donovan Mitchell spot regardless. I mean, Lou Dort was in the first game, right? And really, Donovan Mitchell was the only guy they had to defend. I
Yeah,
mean, not only guy, but you know what I'm saying. He was the main guy
sure.
on this team, and he was still able to have a absolutely baller night. So I think it's possible again. I think that's it for this Cavs team. I'm not interested in the big men. I'm really interested on the other side of just running it back and saying Shea's one of your best power point guard plays on the slate today. I know
Hmm.
you put out a tweet earlier today, very informative tweet. Loved what you did there with the Shea. His secondary stats have been really consistent this season, but we also saw him ball out against this Cleveland team. He had his ceiling game of the year against Cleveland early on, where he had 66 FanDuel points. This Cleveland Cavaliers team is the worst team in the league right now when it comes to giving up fantasy points against the point guard position. When it comes to spend up mans, there's not many better options than Shea and Donovan Mitchell today. I think you have to make a determination of which one you want more because I don't think both are playable. If you had to choose now, who would it be? It's tough, man. It's
Uh,
literally a question that I dealt with for like almost an hour before we got on the show because I went back and forth so many times.
right. So uh, now it's pretty clear that as we've gone along, you have Tyrese Halliburton probably sitting third or fourth on this list in terms of guys that are at the same price at 10K here in this spot. So I would side with Mitchell and his $600 savings, but it's not like there's a huge difference there. Because again, I think you can do whatever you want on FanDuel today. On DraftKings, I think I also side with Mitchell because he's almost $1,000 cheaper than Shea, and that's only price indicative. I think that they're both great. I would probably just lean with Mitchell.
It's tough, man. It's really tough to figure out exactly which one you want. I think both have very similar upside, and so maybe that makes you lean with the Donovan Mitchell side. But I'll also say Shea has a lot of advantages here. The fact that this Cleveland team is a better defensive matchup than what Donovan Mitchell gets on the other side. And missing Lou Dort means a lot more than just missing his defense. This guy was a
It's
guy
true.
who he scores pretty consistently every night. He scored 19 against Atlanta. He scored 29 against Golden State. Like he's a consistent scorer at this point. Losing that many shot attempts and Shea being the most likely guy to pick them up would be potentially massive for him. So I don't know. It's again very back and forth. I think you need that Lou Dort news before you make a decision. I think if Lou Dort's out, I lean Shea. I think if Lou Dort's in, I lean Donovan Mitchell, which is a weird thing to say because I don't know why I'd want someone against the torture chamber, but I still think that like it's a tough spot overall, man. It's a really tough spot.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get this spot right. I think they can both do very, very well. Maybe it does come down to the $600. Maybe we'll talk about some more injuries in the next game. Um, that's all I can lean on from a FanDuel DraftKings conversation. on DraftKings, I do think it's a big difference, though. I think you're taking Donovan Mitchell at $800 difference. But when it comes to FanDuel, it's a very tough conversation, and it's fun because you can just play both of them when you get to Underdog and PrizePicks. Like that
Yep.
part's fun. But this is a very tough decision. Give me Donovan Mitchell, though. I think I lean him slightly at the moment.
What about Chet Holmgren? Do we expect him to have a repeat of that 7 block performance he had back the last time they
Mm.
played against Cleveland, where he had 57 FanDuel points?
I don't know about you, but it was concerning for me to see him completely stop doing anything from a basketball perspective outside of like there. He was there and present, played a lot of the fourth quarter, just didn't really count for much outside of being a defensive presence and just moving around on offense. He had like 38 fantasy points entering the fourth quarter against Atlanta in a really close game. I know that they were getting to a point where that could have been a blowout, but Atlanta brought it back in. So that concerned me a little bit. Again, I think he's fine. Jared Allen being back 21 minutes 2 games ago, 27 minutes last game. I think he plays 30 minutes tonight. And I just don't know if I'm willing to go to the Chet stuff today. Normally we don't even touch the situation. It's just that's the nature of how good Chet is. So I'll stay away. I think there are better center plays.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Just one last thing. I watched that Thunder versus the Hawks game earlier on Monday, and a big thing that I noticed: Josh Giddey did not close out with the starters in the fourth quarter when that game got pretty close. It actually ended up being Case and Wallace instead at the shooting guard position. So
Oh,
something to keep in mind for Josh Giddey here on
that's
out
not
is
great.
that yeah, you're not guaranteed to get him in your fourth quarter minutes, and that makes some things pretty rough for sure. All right, anything else here? If not, let's move in him, 13 assists combined. I think that's money, man. I mean, he's been awesome from an assist category. So is Luka. I think that 13 assists is definitely possible there.
it gets tougher.
I would say that you probably are playing. I wouldn't say you're playing both of them. I think you're most likely playing one or the other, and I think I would lean towards Hawkins because you already have a big piece of the Denver offense, whereas you don't necessarily have a big piece of that New Orleans situation if you just play Matt Ryan.
New Orleans is just so terrible to you have to put them in here. Like with all the injuries that they have, it just is tough. So I think you're fine in getting your exposure to the entire Denver team through Joker. How confident do you feel like he'll be? What's the owner? I know we don't necessarily care. This is more of a baseball conversation, but do you care what Joker's ownership is and where do you think it will be?
I think that most likely the ownership's going to find itself around 50-ish%. I think that people probably aren't as high on the Darius or the Donovan Mitchell and Shea conversation as we are. I think people are probably high on the LaMelo situation, but they know they have the money to get to a guy like Nikola Jokic. So I think it's going to be relatively high. I don't think I'm alone on this take.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think with like a slate that has some interesting power forwards and Biombo and other spots that are like that, maybe that's interesting. But I agree that Joker needs to be at the top of that list above the value.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's. Anything else here? If not, let's move on to pick'em options.
Is it even worth rostering Golden State in tournaments?
Mm, no, I don't think so.
Just
I
banking
think
on
you
a
just have better.
Steph 60
Yeah, yeah.
spot?
I mean, even if you bank on a Steph 60 spot, like, wouldn't you rather just go play Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about this pick'em some pick'em options. Look, man, I just think it's a wagon at this point. Nikola Jokic over rebounds and assists. I mean, if they're going to keep putting it in like the low to mid 20s, keep giving it to me. I think he hits this over 23 and a half for rebounds and assists.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been the wagon that we were on last year. Draymond Green was there, Joker's there. I think it's just fine. I also just like the assist straight up too. All these numbers are fine for me. Is there a fantasy number? Like, where does this stop here?
Fantasy number for Nikola Jokic is at 60 right now. That is massive. I mean, that's saying he hits value. That's crazy. Because
It's
usually what we've
massive,
seen.
but it feels very accomplishable.
Oh yeah, of course. No, I completely agree. I'm just saying that like usually when what we've seen so far this season from the fantasy points perspective is that like most of the time when we talk about guys, it's under their value that they would hit, that they would need to hit
Mhm.
on FanDuel. Usually when it's pretty close to that number, when like with LaMelo, like we talked about earlier, usually means that like they're mispriced. And so that's why I feel like Nicola is going to be 13K by the end of this Jamal Murray injury.
Yeah, for sure. I still like rebounds assists a lot. I like assists by itself. There's a lot of ways to attack it. Um, maybe this is the spot where fantasy isn't the best option. I don't know. I'm fine with whatever. Like
I
I,
think I'm back and
but
forth. I think I'd rather have rebounds than assists, but I think I'm fine with anything there for Nicola.
yeah, okay.
Uh, all right. Anything else in this game? If not, one last game to talk about, Jared. Thank goodness. This has been a long show, man.
Oh, I this doesn't feel right. Maybe this is too tough or too good to be true on a one game sample, but KCP assists are at 2.
Oh, yeah, I like that, man. No way.
This could just revert back, but we have seen that he has at least had some more assist tendencies without Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I want to see something. Let's go over to
It's
our
like,
friends
is
over
this
at
because Jackson just completely disappeared?
maybe, but I want to see. I mean, we have some sample size of being without Jamal Murray and seeing what this
Yeah.
team does. So give me one second. We're going over to our friends at props.cash. We're going over to go check out the assists for this game. And where is KCP?
Furthermore, you can play points assists together just in case the assists aren't as good as they were. And that's 13.5, which he cleared in points alone last time.
Yeah. Man. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, let's assist. There we go. 2.5. I want to see it without Jamal though.
Very intriguing.
Yeah, sorry this is taking so long. So over last season, there was 13 games that he played without Jamal Murray. He was over this 2.5 number 8 out of 13 times. It really geared up towards the end of the season. And you got to also remember that like they had Bruce Brown at that point, so it's a completely different
Yep.
dynamic now.
Yep.
Bruce Brown was like the de facto point guard. I would have to go look because you're not going to be able to filter out Bruce Brown on this one, or at least I doubt you will because he's not on the team anymore. But like, were these games that he did get 5, 5, 6, and 5 towards the end of the season? Were they without Bruce Brown? Because if that's the case, this might be very, very easy to get some exposure to. I bet you could go
Mm,
watch film and just go see like is he the playmaker at the end of the day? And if he is, then you take this number and feel pretty good about it.
yeah. I still think, at a just very base level take at the moment, I still think that even if that is not anywhere near 7, and even if it's at like 3 or 4, you could still take points, assists, and feel very good about it because you're still going to get open looks for him from 3, and just he's going to have to act as a scorer. And I don't think
Yeah,
Jackson is the same in that regard.
for sure, for sure. All right. Glad you brought that up before we moved on. Let's move on into this last one, man. It is the Portland Trailblazers facing off against the Sacramento Kings. Over under is at 221.5. Man, name might be the Sacramento Kings, but without De'Aaron Fox, they have been the Sacramento Queens. They look awful recently, dude. Uh, I'm glad you liked the joke there. Without De'Aaron Fox, the scoring, the offense looks abysmal right now. I think Portland could very well win this game. I think people are underestimating what Portland can do. I think at least Portland covers here.